Good evening, folks. This is Deb and Dave, and this is a short take. And we're going to talk about the next Tulsi Gabbard on the horizon from the Democratic Party. That's the only way we can describe this move by Gavin Newsom, which is directly out of left field. I just don't get it. But other than self-serving, I mean, that's the best we can say about it. That's the best we can say about it. At worst, he's the next turncoat for the right wing.
Wait, I'm not talking about Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is a different animal and a different asshole. Bernie Sanders has been on Joe Rogan. There have been other politicians that have been on Joe Rogan. He at least has a conversation and doesn't turn it into a a festival for promoting and recruiting right wing nutbags.
Right.
Yeah, I mean he does his own thing. I know, but that's first and foremost. This is way more serious than this. We will do bits on Charlie Kirk if you need it, but he is a deal breaker for us. He's a misogynist. He's a racist. He goes beyond that. He's a transphobe and a homophobe. By the way, that's what got Gavin Newsom in trouble on the podcast. So let me get into details into exactly what happened.
So let me take 1 minute to explain, just in case people don't know who Charlie Kirk is.
Go
He's
ahead.
the head of Turning Point USA, which is a group of people who cultivate the next generation of ultra right-wing racists and bigots. Okay. He has access to high school students. He has access to the college campuses, and he essentially brings up the next generation of right-wing, ultra
Fascist.
right-wing fascists. It's
Right.
the only way you can describe it. It's a group of people who have yearly meetings. They have what only can be described as hate fests,
Right.
and they fill these kids' heads with lies. That's basically what the whole function of Turning Point USA is.
So think of the Nazi youth movement and then turn it to present day. That is what Charlie Kirk is doing, including but not limited to the conversation that he had with Gavin Newsom, which is upsetting enough. Gavin Newsom brought up that he thinks it's unfair that when men compete with women. And we're not going to go over that whole argument again. That is misguided at the very best and pure homophobia at the very worst.
So
And
he's
he's somewhere in
essentially
between,
speaking
but
out against transgender athletes. That's
correct.
exactly what he's doing. And again, and Dave knows this, I have long said that we need an organization that counters what Turning Point USA does, that teaches children about the value of embracing differences. And I just
Right.
think that's a big topic, and that's something that we have talked about in the past.
And by the way, when you contact your representative, and you should, we will get into that too. Next week, starting on the 16th, and I believe it's going to the 23rd, all U.S. Congress people will go back home. Some may stay in D.C., but they're going to have a chance to go back home, and this is when you communicate with your representatives by email. Real quick, one topic, maybe one and a half. Introduce who you are, what your problem is, what your solution is. Bang. Don't go into your life story. Don't go into whatever. Make it short, make it sweet. 1 point. Stop Musk. I had my check delayed, whatever it is. And I guess, yeah. So here's what happened with Gavin Newsom. And I know this kind of rambled, but Here's what happened with Gavin Newsom. He did not go on a show to promote himself or say, "Hey, I'm running for office" or whatever. He has created his own podcast. He has creative control. He gets to choose who he interviews. The very first interview was with Charlie Kirk, who is to the right. I consider him to the right of Donald Trump. I consider him around Nick Fuentes area.
Right.
They're actually to the right of Donald Trump. For Gavin Newsom to interview on the very first night, his very first show, interview Charlie Kirk, and then tell him that he's not comfortable, he doesn't feel it's fair. He's telling Charlie Kirk. You think Charlie Kirk didn't use that? He's all over the place. He has the entire interview on his show. He's went on Fox News once or twice. I'm sure he's going to go on OAN or Newsmax, whatever. But the third, the final thing, remember what Deb was talking about? Turning Point USA, basically a fascist indoctrination camp. Gavin Newsom praised him for that. What the hell?
And what would have been a very good first guest for Gavin Newsom would have been Al Green. Okay?
Exactly.
The Democrats are supposed to be fighting back against this. Okay? The Democrats are supposed to be on the people's side. All right? And for Gavin Newsom to have made this move when, look, this is a topic of conversation that's near and dear to my heart, but I will tell you something. There are so few transgender athletes playing in sports across this nation. And if there were any issues with transgender athletes playing sports across this nation, we would know about it. This is a topic that is none of the government's business. This is a topic that should be handled by whatever educational organization, if it's a school transgender athlete that's playing sports in a school setting, or
between the school district, the parents, and the kids. That's it. And the coaches and the athletes.
And let them deal with it. This isn't a government, this is not the government's business. All right, this continued attack on one segment of the population is at best distressing, but for me, quite angering. It is just, to me, beyond the pale.
This is not a debatable issue, number one. And one thing I will say is that I know Tom Suozzi reversed his position when he spoke with transgender advocates and activists on Long Island. I know that. I know Seth Moulton, his voting record, all of that. I also know Gavin Newsom's voting record. Please be let it be known that I'm not condemning the man just for one or two things. A lot of Democrats, especially the moderates, are ignorant to this issue. They don't know any transgender people, and they just hear it and they regurgitate it, and then we have to also communicate with our reps and not just be like, listen, you're wrong. Listen to these people. Not like go at them with anger, but give them facts, as well as say, hey, I'm angry about this. My child, my friend, my whatever is transgender, and you are literally erasing them. Deb told me about a bill in Texas that's being suggested, or I don't know if it's been proposed yet, but
they're going to try to pass it.
They're going to try to pass it, that if you are identify as transgender, you can be arrested for gender identity fraud. I mean, what the fuck?
Fraud. I mean, think about this. When you start outlawing a group of people, I remember that from history. All you got to do is look back at your history, folks. Okay? Look at world history and understand what this is all about. On their way to, stealing everything from the American people, they always demonize one group of people. All right. In the case of the current administration, they're demonizing not just transgender people, but immigrants. Okay. But this is, to me, for Gavin Newsom, I would consider this, well, at least for me, it is political death. As far as I'm concerned, I would never ever now consider him a viable candidate for 2028, if anybody's thinking that, because in the middle of this battle, that we are in, there are bigger issues than transgender people playing sports. And we have people who are on Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, fighting for their lives at this point. That was a battle he could have taken up as the governor of California. He's got plenty of people in his state in that position. And yet he chose this, and he chose to speak to one of the most vile human beings in America. If you don't know Charlie Kirk, I suggest you use, I don't know, whatever search engine you're using now. If you're pissed off enough at Google to not be using it, type in the name Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA and educate yourselves.
And also a couple of things. All right. This kills it. And don't come to us and ask us to promote Gavin Newsom
No.
in the primaries. Before you go there, what the hell? I'm gonna say it on camera right now. If Gavin Newsom becomes a Democratic candidate, I will have considered that in some way we have lost. However, yeah, I'll vote for him. Or we're not going to push for him. We will go the activist and advocate route during that time. We're not going to push for the guy, but we know that whatever vile freaking candidate that comes down the GOP way, probably Vance. I mean, it's really upsetting, but it's kind of like when we found out about Kirsten Sinema voting against, voters' rights, or once Joe Manchin killed, Build Back Better, or Tulsi Gabbard,
Yeah,
her transformation.
This to me is almost
Tulsi
like
Gabbard 2.0.
This is Tulsi Gabbard 2.0, in my opinion. This is how this all started with her as well, almost on the same topic as Gavin Newsom, as a matter of fact. Okay,
Pete.
and so I'm sorry. This for me is a deal breaker in terms of
Hardcore support. Oh, yeah. Now, as I said,
and by the way, he may not even be considering a run for the presidency. He may become, God only knows when his term is up as governor of California. Maybe this is what he's going to be.
I think that this is because this is his last term.
Yeah.
This was his last term anyway. Now, what also my call to action, and we're going to look at all the petitions, and I'm going to look at some of that and see if there's a really strong and active one. If there isn't, we have to pressure Ken Martin not to consider Gavin Newsom whatsoever.
Right.
Okay. Or to push that idea that, listen, what he did and who he consorted with. And by the way, same thing with Cenk. I don't give a damn about Cenk. He did the same thing. He actually, quote unquote, debated with Charlie Kirk. And this little banter about, oh no, there you go again. No, stop it. Okay, there is no debate with hate. None.
Right.
Okay, and to freaking, we know, but you have to educate your children too. Don't do it with a hammer, but through your actions, and just have conversations, real life moments, blah, 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 because Charlie Kirk can't get to your kid.
Right.
And Gavin Newsom, if he's that stupid, we can't have him either. Gavin Newsom legitimized Charlie Kirk.
Right.
That is the biggest sin that this man did. And the DNC has already kind of backed off Newsom like he's radioactive. Also, you might want to consider uh you might want to consider Kamala rather. Uh Kamala, you might consider going to California and cleaning California up. Um I know that plan is amazing. Her plan is amazing, but California needs some real help too. So, if I I don't know if this threw anything off, but
Well, she doesn't
just,
know. She might run again.
yeah, she might. But I don't know if this
I-
throws a wrench into everything because they were going to have a conversation, I think, with her. I think that was part of it. But now it throws everything off. Um, and either Newsom is a useful idiot for Fox News. They already showed the clips, okay? And Sean Hannity had Charlie Kirk on, and they had a conversation, and they just trashed him. They trashed him. They delegitimized him, but they basically said, "Hey, there's a Democrat that agrees with Charlie Kirk. You're legitimizing the man, and
Yep.
by doing that, you make yourself illegitimate." I'm very upset about it, actually.
Yeah, I know that the right is positioning Gavin Newsom as someone they have to worry about. I'm going to tell you, the Democrats have to worry about him now. That's
Right.
the real rub here. The Democratic Party, in the midst of all of this nonsense going on in a nation of total and utter chaos, has now got to worry about Gavin Newsom. This is not some small thing. When you go on the air and you legitimize a guy like Charlie Kirk, you have opened the door. And that, to me, is
They have
unconscionable
created,
at this
yeah,
time. He
you
should
have
be
created a
fighting.
disaster.
He should be fighting for the party's values. He should have had Al Green on and talked to him about his censure and
Right.
and and all of that. And instead, he chose Charlie Kirk.
And by the way, you know, you're legitimizing him and you also set yourself up. I know what he's doing because he sees that the right is popular right now.
Right.
So maybe he can fit in between blah blah blah. Are you kidding me? No. No. We're good. And again, we will rail against the Republican Party and then maybe say, "Hey, remember to vote for the guy." But you know, we don't need self-promoters. I said this before too. I don't consider myself a social media influencer, and neither does Deb. We don't need that. We need people who inform one another and work with one another. We
Right.
need community builders. We need organizers. We need, yes, the messaging. No, it's communicating with your constituents and actually literally talking to them instead of a right-wing shithead.
Right.
So this went about 20 minutes, so I'm a little.
All right. We're done. We'll be back, guys, with more.
That's, yeah, rant over.